All right, and there we are, done with our countdown of 30 seconds from 7 o'clock. And as always, it's Wednesday night, 7 p.m., time for the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. My name is Scott Weldon. I am the Executive Director of South Carolina NORML. I'd like to say welcome to everybody or anybody that might be on the call. Yeah, we've got a couple people starting to join in. So we're going to hang out for a couple of minutes here as we wait to see if we get a couple more people in the room. I do want to kind of give a heads up tonight is I got last minute notice from VP. She will be unable to join the program to actually lead the program tonight, which was pretty much the plan. So I'm going to try and pick up the reins and steer the horse a little bit here tonight. But so bear with me a little bit on that, and also on clicking these buttons in the right way. So we're a couple of minutes in. I'm going to kind of start the way we normally would, and that is with our disclaimer that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. So that is our disclaimer. Again, welcome to everybody that's actually joining us. We do like to also remind you to follow us on Instagram at SCNormal. Also follow VP's page at Vaughn Postema. That's on Instagram. Also, if you I actually prefer kind of YouTube stuff. Sign up and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so it will notify you when we are going live. And we've been trying to, at least a couple hours ahead of time, pre-schedule these a little bit so you may get a notification a little bit earlier. We have Joey here on the chat saying, "Yo, Scott, what's up? Where's your co-host?" She had to do the real job kind of stuff tonight. She's sort of involved with, I don't know if I should actually go and out her on where she works as a day job. So anyway, she works at a day job that sometimes crosses over into evenings, sometimes crosses over into weekends, and she had a work obligation tonight. So her ability to volunteer with us here on the call was snatched from us. She will be back again in 2 weeks. She may even join us next week, but next week is the second Wednesday of the month. Second Wednesday, as most of you know, is the when we go do our general monthly meeting. We will go over pretty much as much news as we have nationally, state level, and talk about what's going on at the local chapter level here as well. But tonight, let me see if I can find the notes. And actually, I'm going to drop the glasses down a moment, see if I can see the screen a little bit better. Vaughn had some plans for us tonight. She had some good plans for us tonight, and so I'm going to kind of pop into the intro there. There we go. Click that back up. She has a document she sort of updated me to a little bit here. She mentions in here, as far as today's agenda, Canna headlines, if any. Nothing that I'm going to bring up in the meeting immediately at the moment. Second thing on the agenda is our Welcome to the Know the Laws series. And then, of course, third thing on our agenda will be possession laws in South Carolina. Not of course, but that's what they are. So that is our agenda for tonight. And I'm going to try and find the right click button. There we go. Welcome to the Know the Law series. She sent us a message here basically letting us know that for the month of December, we'll be breaking down our state laws and the penalties involved with that. Again, that will be following our general meeting next week, but that'll be the following few weeks in December. So those are going to be the talking points for the next month for the most part. What we're going to be talking about today is simple possession laws in South Carolina. As some of you already know, we've got our press conference and lobby day already scheduled for January 25th, 2020 in the lobby area, first floor lobby of the State House, South Carolina State House. That'll be starting at 9 a.m. And we are just in the beginning process of inviting some speakers. I'm hoping to get some notable politically influential speakers to our event this year. Oh, okay. I didn't see the comment, but I see Joey answer. Oh, there we go. Evan here, he mentions in the comments he would love to hear any legal updates on the THC hemp for South Carolina, if any. I know that's one of the projects that Vaughn is working on. So again, she's not here with us tonight, but that is something that she is working on. Thank you for that question. What I am going to do is just kind of get us started. The other one thing I do want to mention as far as agenda for tonight, we'll be talking a little bit about our lobby day a little bit more in the program, later in the program. But for now, I'm going to share a page here in the chat with you and find the chat button. And this is from NORML's Nationals page. This is the South Carolina laws and penalties here in our state. They don't go into the actual language of the excuse me, language of the legislation or the laws themselves. I'm going to pop this one up on the screen for a moment. See if I can share that with you. There we go. Okay. So here we are at NORML's page. It is norml.org, and then you will go to the state laws tab and find it under there. Let me scroll down here a little bit. You'll notice the top two lines here is for simple possession. That is for 1 ounce or less. First offense is a misdemeanor, potentially 30 days in jail. Maximum fine $200. Now, I've heard other numbers like than $200, and maybe some of you can answer that question for me. Are there also other court costs involved? The number I tend to hear from people a lot of times is 600 and change, like the mid 600s. So I don't know if there's other fees or something involved with that. Or possibly it is because there was maybe some other circumstances. Any subsequent offense, a second offense or beyond, still a misdemeanor, potentially 1 year of incarceration, and a maximum fine of $200. Excuse me one moment. Now, I've heard stories of people in the state go to, get 30 days in jail for something as simple as a seed in an ashtray, a stained roach paper without any weed left in it, just the paper, but it tested positive, for ridiculous things. And to me, it's not really the $200 fine that's not necessarily a big deal. It's 30 days in jail. It's a good chance you've lost your job if you don't show up for 30 days. The money that you were making at your job, you won't be making for that 30 days. Those costs are much higher than the $200 max fine. And I was just talking with somebody again recently, talking about the residual consequences that come along. They had trouble finding housing after a cannabis arrest. They had to wait a certain amount of time till they could kind of get education assistance. So the residual consequences are also play a big factor, a big role. They're trying to prevent you from educating yourself better, trying to prevent you from having a roof over your head. Uh, it's craziness. So even when you go to subsequent offenses, it's not necessarily the $200 max fine. That's now a year, that you're unable to work. Your job's definitely not going to wait for you for a year. Um, my guess is many times there's also tied on to these uh, probationary obligations, drug testing obligations at your cost. Um, it's not included in that $200 max fine. They get you pretty hard and heavy. Today is all we're talking about really is the possession laws, and primarily we're talking about these first offense, 30-day, $200, kind of things. Let me just take a peek, see if we have any comments in here at the moment. No. But you could see it possibly happening where somebody gets, as I mentioned, caught with a seed in their ashtray. Yeah, some hard nose wants to push it. Let me go ahead. I don't need to share the screen now any longer. A hard-nosed cop maybe want to push it, stick it to you, add it on to some other charge because maybe you were exercising your rights and they didn't like that. You never know. A lot of these times, some of these small things are, if there's multiple charges, some of these small ones are thrown out later in plea bargains and stuff. But, they always seem to stick it with these, in my opinion. And again, I don't have any facts in front of me on the arrest record for cannabis at the moment. Let me see what I can find you on this other screen. Let me just kind of stop here and take a quick look. Okay, here we've got a comment from Joey. Let me see if I can click on the right screen. What is this insanity? Tax stamps. This state has a marijuana tax stamp law enacted. This law mandates that those who possess marijuana are legally required to purchase and affix tax-issued stamps onto his or her contraband. Failure to do so may result in a fine and/or criminal sanction. I'm guessing that's a very old law, and again, probably, and now correct me if I'm wrong on that, Joey, but I would think that's very similar to the 1937, Marijuana Stamp Act. Yeah, you could grow marijuana, you could have marijuana, you just had to buy the tax stamp. Oh no, they're not available. Yeah, it is insanity. It is insanity. Just the overall discrimination. I'm going to jump backwards just a little bit because I think part of the reason Vaughn is starting this series with talking about simple possession and the penalties thereof. I think it's partly because, again, our lobby day is coming up on the 25th. Our focus, very similarly to last year, is going to be harm reduction through decriminalization. As much as we support the medical marijuana, need for medical marijuana in the state, there are strong advocacy groups already deeply entrenched in the fight for medical marijuana in the state. We will support as well as we can, but we feel it's kind of our duty to bring light upon the civil rights and civil liberties aspect of it that I don't think these other organizations really acknowledge or focus on. And going to that, I was thrilled to hear Nancy Mace in the hearings the other week talk about it being unconstitutional. Not only she, but many of the speakers that were there to answer questions, the experts and that kind of stuff. it was pretty inspiring. I'm still pretty stunned at a Republican legislator from South Carolina that is sponsoring marijuana decriminalization or descheduling at the federal level. I'm still stunned. And I mean, now mind you, I kind of had a heads up a little bit before this officially was announced a year and a half ago, because I do live in Nancy's district. I happened to see her and one of her aides at an event right here in the community, and she sort of like steered me off to talk to this aide a little bit, and he was alluding to that there was something in the works, with Nancy and pro marijuana, legislation. So, but I'm still stunned by it. I'm thrilled by it, and again, after the hearings, I think they went very, very well. Let me kind of take a quick peek here. We have Evan here says that's because the way they technically made cannabis illegal was by requiring a stamp tax. Yep, tax stamp, and then never issued them back in the 30s. And even when Nixon had Congress pass the legislation that they did in the 70s, and that's why we so often focus on Nixon, and is because the passing of the Controlled Substances Act in the 60s, they completely ignored the study that was required by the initiation of the legislation to study marijuana and its effects, and that report came back 2 years later in 1972, basically saying, we should really just decriminalize simple possession of cannabis. We should even decriminalize small sales. They're selling it in $5 and $10 bags to each other. Somebody gets a bigger bag and they split it up by a couple of dollars. We should decriminalize that too. That was our legislators saying this, and Nixon just kind of blew up and wasn't happy there, and completely just ignored that and pushed ahead with making cannabis consumers criminals. Ina says, hi there. Hi Ina, how are you? Welcome to the chat tonight. So let me just kind of take a real quick peek over here at Vaughn's notes before I go too much further. Oh, okay, we already talked about that for the month of December. They'll be breaking down that. Penalties and laws. So, is that the same one? The key takeaways really, I think, to what we were looking at on that NORML document that we shared the link to, which now I lost. There it is. Really are the fines, the excessive time for taking away your freedom for such a simple no victim act, excessive jail times compared to the neighboring states such as North Carolina. The penalties are steeper in South Carolina, and possessions arrest can lead to seized assets, which is something we really didn't even discuss here tonight. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more in weeks to come when Vaughn kind of expands on the topic. But I'm going to kind of dip my toe in there tonight anyway, just to talk about some of the things that she's got here. Can lead to seized assets, and depending on how they want to charge you, they could take a simple possession charge and turn it into more. A good example in my mind is a lot of times folks like a little variety. They like a little bit of sativa for the daytime, a little indica for the nighttime. But if you're caught with it in separate containers, separate packaging, oh, you've got it packaged for distribution. All of a sudden now your personal, consumption products are packaged for distribution. when all you did was bought a little variety. You got a couple of different strains. It's like, you know, going to the red dots, I guess they call them, the packaged goods stores, and picking up a bottle of red wine, a bottle of white wine, a bottle of rosé. All of a sudden, you've got each one packaged for distribution. Um, that's how silly that sounds to me. I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off there. What else does she have on here? We talked about job loss. Absolutely. You know, the fact that you could lose your job, you could lose your home. Of course, if you're going to jail and you were the breadwinner and you were paying the rent on the home, your family can lose their home because the landlord's not going to go, oh, we understand. You can skip paying us this year while you're. Nope, not going to happen. And talking about families, as she has here on a highlighted point, issues with Department of DSS, Department of Social Services, problems with children. You know, all of a sudden you could be charged. I've had pregnant moms call me saying, I tested positive for cannabinoids, you know, from, you know, DSS, and it was just, you know, some hemp products I got at such and such a local store, but I tested positive, and now they're trying to charge me with child abuse, and I'm like, the madness that the uncontrolled power that they seem to have just because you choose to consume something safer than alcohol. Or I mean, again, I go back to Nancy Mace's testimony in Congress, in our Congress. Wow, talking about her self-medication at a young age after trauma, and you know, unknowingly she was self-medicating, but that it actually had helped her and saved her life. And those are her words. She claimed that it saved her life. I've never heard anybody say, I turned to drinking alcohol and it saved my life. I'm trying to think here. Nothing's coming to me. W.C. Fields, I turned to drinking and it saved my life. Okay, I'm dating myself now. But anyway, you know, the repercussions on a simple cannabis arrest, and we talk about this from time to time. You all know I have my little obsession with watching First Amendment audits on YouTube. People getting pulled over and filming their stops. One I got a kick out of recently I watched is I think they call him the bread trucker or something like that. Guy took an old bread truck and kind of turned it into an RV camper and travels the country, and you know, got pulled over by basically what's the word I'm looking for? You know, in a bait area where they're oh, we're pulling everybody over. They're walking the drug dogs around. They have no excuse to have pulled them over except they claim that there was a light out on the top of the truck during the daylight. You know, and they had that dog indicated or this person given up their rights. Now, mind you, they claim to have had nothing in the vehicle, and I have no indication that there was anything of illicit in the vehicle. But just the way that it seems sometimes law enforcement, especially as he put it in his video, in some of these small towns, they're really looking to, you know, make some revenue. They're pulling everybody over, and if they found a joint, if they found a, you know, a bag of sativa and a bag of indica, and you could be in some world of hurt. All right, let me see. Any comments coming in? We are only at 25 minutes into the podcast. I miss Vaughn. Come on, girl. It has really been a much more dynamic program, podcast, since she's joined us on this on a regular basis. But I do also understand the need for that real job kind of thing. I am going to just kind of let go here for a second, see if we get any other comments come in from the chat. And if not, I am going to ramble off on a little bit of a side direction here. New glasses, they have that progressive lens in them. Not necessarily the best for sitting at the computer though, because then I have to like look up to read or look over them. But I think they're pretty fun. I think they're pretty fun looking glasses. All right, take them off just so I can see back here on the screen. All right, I am going to real quick go back because now she has me curious. State laws, North Carolina. Yeah, I'm going to share this one with you because I didn't realize this. I don't know if you can see that on the screen there. Zoom that in just a little bit bigger. North Carolina's law, simple possession, ½ ounce or less. So it's a smaller amount. No jail time, max fine $200. That's getting a little bit closer to that, no fine, no time, no court cost decriminalization that we'd really like to see. Between a ½ ounce and an ounce and a half, you could get 1 to 45 days and $1,000 fine. So you're kind of splitting hairs there a little bit. If you had 1 ounce in South, or under an ounce in South Carolina, let's say 15 grams in South Carolina, and 15 grams in North Carolina could technically hit you for more time and a greater fine. 15 days more and $800 more. But then once you get to an ounce and a half or more, it becomes up to 10 pounds. It becomes a felony in North Carolina, 3 to 8 months. It's still less than 1 year that that they had here in South Carolina for just a subsequent offense and that same $1,000 fine. I'm not going to go into there with intent to distribute and sale or delivery. That is just for another time. But thought that was a good one to kind of take note of there. And somebody also made a comment to me the other day that, and I don't know if it was here on the podcast, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, but that they believe one of the reasons we're really struggling here in South Carolina to get any kind of legislation passed is we do not currently border a legal state. If somebody's in North Carolina, they have to go up one state. If somebody's in Georgia, they got to go down one state. But in South Carolina, you're going to have to cross through another state. So that's part of that. Whoever even said it, I don't even recall. Their theory is that part of the reason we're struggling so hard is that it is we have no bordering states. True, and to be quite honest with you, as states were legalizing across the country back in 2020, and I'm guessing on this specifically, the numbers jumped. I think in 2018 the numbers were about like 18,000, 19,000 Cannabis, simple possession cannabis arrest in South Carolina in 2020. That number jumped up to, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, something like 32 or 34,000. They jumped up very significantly and then came back down the following year. In 2021, I think, were the most recent figures I saw for that. But that, on top of the North Charleston memo that we were talking about last week, and the State Attorney General opinion on hemp and CBD products, and whole flower of those, there's still way too many arrests in the state. They're fueling for-profit prison systems. So that's what we're going to do on January 25th, is hopefully go to the State House and start talking to our legislators about that. I did post earlier today to our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram account about heading to the State House. And if you're interested in talking with your legislator, to actually just register with us, let me get to the right link and I can share it with you here. If you go to this link that I'm going to be dropping in the chat, see if I spelled that right, I don't know. Just like we did last year, we'll go ahead and we will reach out and try to schedule an appointment with your legislators. You don't have to do it. Just make sure that you give us your the address where you're registered to vote at, so that we know who your legislators are when you're registering for this. Hopefully I asked for all that information, because I know I need it. But yes, give us your actual address. A good example is, here in the communities I'm at, and it happens in a lot of communities, if you're somewhat near a line, you could be in one district on one side of the street, person on the other side of the street could be in another district altogether. So that's where your accurate address is important for us to be able to reach out and know who your legislators are. With that being said, they're not always willing to schedule an appointment. A good example is my favorite senator here in my district, Senator Sandy Sen. Not necessarily a friend to cannabis law reform, and is aware of my position. And so when we tried to reach out to her, we actually had Kristen, our deputy director, reaching out and doing the scheduling. She was politely told that the senator knows my position on cannabis law reform and isn't interested in having a sit down and talk. So that can happen, depending on who the legislator is. If we try and reach out in your, on your behalf, and try and schedule an appointment, letting them know that we're there to hopefully talk about harm reduction through cannabis decriminalization, and they already have their mindset, they may not take an appointment. That doesn't mean you can't still write to them, and that would probably be my biggest suggestion. If for some reason we get back to you and say, hey, look, we tried to get a hold of, good example again, me. I was able to schedule with my senator, or not able to schedule with my senator, but was able to schedule with my House representative. And so in that case, I could, after the fact, write to my senator and let them know I was disappointed they weren't willing to meet, but I still have some information I'd like to share with them, whatever the case may be. Again, last year we were handing out copies of emerging clinical applications. We probably will have enough to go around to most of the legislators that we'll schedule with this year. And again, if we schedule with your legislator, we'll have a little gift packet for them of information. So don't forget, that will be January 25th. The press conference is going to start at 9 o'clock in the first floor lobby of the State House. I don't want to try and give away too much as far as my hoped invitation list, because right now it is just sort of a hope. Even though we're getting closer and closer to this, I sent out my first invitation to a speaker today, and I'm have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with somebody that's going to help me try to pick, and your input's always welcome here, try to pick speakers that are going to better represent the controlling parties of our state. And we know that our House and our Senate are both majority controlled by conservatives, and we want to have as a real good conservative representation at our lobby days, because I'm being told all the time, hey, it's you know, it's a nonpartisan issue that both sides are interested in you know, marijuana law reform, and I see that when I'm talking to our followers, when I'm talking to our members. I see that all the time. It's not a partisan issue when it comes to the citizenry and when it comes to the voters. It does happen to be a partisan issue, though, when it comes to the elected officials. And that's where I've been informed that there is support in the Conservative Party, and that you know, I'll be looking into that a little bit more in the next day or three. And I know there is, even from our Smoke the Vote Voters Guide. We had more respondents from both parties than normally we do. I was as a matter of fact, a lot of candidates were excited to fill out our questionnaire this year, it seemed like. And you know, again, some of the wording I got from a friend of mine that's a little bit more on the conservative political side, knowledge base wise especially, is that it's more the older legislators that aren't supporting cannabis law reform, not so much the younger ones. And they're hoping that, you know, this will transition in time. But I know we're all tired of waiting. It's been a long time. It's been, you know, over 50 years since 1970. So it's been a long time. And even more than that if you want to go back to the 30s. So if you happen to live in a district and you know that you have a representative or you have a senator that is interested in seeing harm reduction through decriminalization, we're not focusing on medical. We support medical, obviously, but that is not the focus of our press conference. NORML is at its heart a civil rights and civil liberties organization, and so our goal is to stop arresting people and tacking on these, you know, residual consequences for simple cannabis possession. You're making their lives harder. There's no victim involved. So if you happen to have a legislator in your district that is decrim friendly, simple possession decrim friendly, they don't have to be recreational friendly, you know. That's a hard sell in a state that doesn't have even medical at this point. But that people can see the damage that it does to citizens with these harsh penalties for simple cannabis possession. So That's our goal. That's where I'm going to be focusing on in the next week or two. Hopefully, I can get all those invitations out before Christmas hits and while we're still 30 days out. Um, and hopefully get some responses back as well. So I did drop in the chat there our press conference lobby day links if you are interested in talking with your legislators. You don't have to fill out that form, register for that. If you just want to kind of show up, hold some signs for our press conference, or if you're somebody that is politically influential and you want to minutes at the podium, or usually 3 to 5 minutes. Um, Reach out to me through our website at scnormal.org through the contact page, and we'll see what we can get on the schedule. All right, I'm looking one more time here. Let's see what we have on Vaughn's notes for tonight. Well, I guess what I would want to elaborate on, since we are talking about simple possession, we are talking about the laws, we are talking about the penalties, I guess, cool, we got a comment. I guess one of the things that I do want to, TJ, yeah, I'm kind of running out of stuff to talk about already. Vaughn was working tonight and unable to join us, so I'm kind of trying to hold the reins for her for tonight. Basically, the topic of conversation tonight has been she's starting a new series called Know the Laws series, and we're talking about South Carolina's simple possession law and what the penalties of that are. Where was I just on here? I completely lost track. I'm sorry, guys. I remember where I was going to kind of go with this. We're talking about the simple possession laws, the time that people are losing from going to jail for whether it's 30 days or a year, depending on whether it's first offense or whether it's a subsequent offense. As we mentioned in some of this, you'll lose your job. You very possibly lose your housing, especially if it's a year type thing, and you're not there to pay your rent. And you look at the money that's being made through the for-profit prison system. On the flip side of it, and we've talked about this a couple of times on the program, the estimated black market for cannabis in the state is $1.1 billion. A $1.1 billion, legalizing isn't going to introduce a new market to South Carolina. Decriminalizing is not going to introduce a new market to South Carolina. The market is already here, $1.1 billion, one of the largest in the nation for black market cannabis. Yeah, I think Texas, because of its size especially, but they beat us by 2 or 3 times. 3 times? Something like that. But my estimates would be, if people ask me if they would decriminalize, let me roll that back a little bit. If they would, legalize for adult use, that would easily become a $2.2 billion. It would double. $2.2 billion industry. That would probably, you tax that. It's going to probably benefit our communities much better than paying for these for-profit prison systems. It's not going to be harming as many people's lives by throwing them in jail for something as simple cannabis possession. So I don't know where we're going to go in South Carolina with it. It's an uphill battle we're going to be facing for probably a few more years. I was disappointed we couldn't elect a pro-cannabis governor. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. Um, because I go on about Henry, and I'm not real familiar with Henry. Many of you know I'm not a lifelong South Carolina resident. Um, but one of the first things I did in starting Low Country NORML before we became South Carolina NORML is somebody suggested to me. Actually, it was my realtor. He goes, "Oh, I just finished reading this book. Maybe you want to borrow it before I have to return it." It's called Jackpot. And basically, it was a story of like the late 1970s, early 1980s marijuana smuggling into South Carolina, and the young Attorney General, no, U.S. Attorney Henry McMaster, under the Reagan administration, and his efforts to quash that marijuana smuggling here in South Carolina. Pretty interesting stories. I found it quite entertaining and got it at the local library. So support your local library, folks. But yeah, Henry has had a lifelong history or career-long history of being hard on drugs, and if they would just have left cannabis alone, I really don't think they would have the opioid problem that they have today. I don't have the link to show you right now, but go to National NORML's website, norml.org, and go find their fact sheets, and it will, probably somewhere in there you'll be able to find that opioid use is going down in communities that have legalized cannabis. So if for no other reason, I mean, I've had people come up to me, "Hey, I want to thank you for what you do, and I want to tell you my story. I was a 12-year heroin addict, and I used cannabis to get off of heroin." Man, I gotta hand it to them, and it's always touching to hear people say that. I just wish there was a better way to express that to our legislators. So that's where we're going to try and go with this. Like I said, Lobby Day is coming up January 25th. If you want to meet with your legislators, sign up and register. The link is in the chat. If not, I'm going to drop it down one more time just to make sure everybody gets it. And then we will take care of trying to schedule with your legislator, and we will accompany you to your meeting with them. Usually, and just to kind of give everybody a heads up, the way we worked it last year, I think it worked out pretty well. We all kind of walked in, we're invited to have a seat, whether it was at a table or around a desk. We kind of introduced our group, and if they wanted to or prepared to, the constituent was one of the first that we would have speak. Or I would kind of, introduce, or Kristen would introduce, actually, if I remember correctly, or depending on who was there with you, and then let the constituent communicate with their legislator, try and answer any questions that they have, and then leave them with a little packet of info, and be out of their hair. Usually it was 5 or 10 minutes, not very long at all, but long enough to let our legislators at least know our position. And I do want to also kind of, because now it just popped into my head that I talked about how our lobby day is focusing on decriminalization and harm reduction through decriminalization. That doesn't mean that in your time to talk with your legislator that that's specifically what you have to talk about. If you want to talk more about medical or veteran use or whatever the case may be, feel free to, expand on what you want to say. Alrighty, I'm going to take a peek at the clock here and probably throw it out there one more time. If anybody is interested in making a comment, has something they'd like to say, any suggestions. Otherwise, I'll watch the chat here for a minute or two. I do want to kind of remind you, we are still in the process of our 2023 membership drive that will run through February 14th, 15th, one of those days. I think we ended on the 14th. We do the drawing on the 15th. I have a message I have to follow up from. We have someone who is interested in donating an item or a gift card to our grand prize basket, which will include at least a copy of Dope Man the board game. One of our last copies. We're kind of running out of stock on those, and once they're gone, because I think we're the only place in the world you can get them. And as we collect some other add-ins to that grand prize, we will let you know. We'll post it on our website as they come in. Another reminder on that is we do have a membership package out there where you can also get your membership and a t-shirt. The t-shirts in that package are 15% off. If you've ordered one and you ordered it in medium, you're probably a little frustrated with me because you've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And I should be picking them up on Friday, hopefully getting them packaged up and out in the mail and on Saturday. And you should have them hopefully in plenty of time so you can wear it Christmas Day. Or if you need to ship it, hopefully get it shipped to whoever you're gifting it to. So I apologize to anybody who's been waiting for those size medium shirts. Most other sizes are pretty well in stock. I think smalls are not very many, and some of the sizes like 4 and 5X are special order. But beyond that, we've got a pretty good supply of large and extra large, and I think even 2X. And we'll be restocked on mediums tomorrow. So if you want a shirt that has working your full marijuana laws on the back, which I don't know if I can turn around and show you very well, 15% off in the membership package during our membership drive. All right, one last look here. Nothing coming up in the chat. I do want to remind everybody, next week will be the second Wednesday of the month. That is our regular monthly membership meeting, chapter meeting, public meeting. I've called it a bunch of different things over the years, so now I'm just going to call it all of them. We will go over national news, state level news, if anything comes up in the state in the next week. I don't think Tom Davis is early introducing his bill, but we'll keep an eye out on that. And then, of course, we'll go over a little bit on chapter news and coming events, which we're going to talk about Lobby Day. All right. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. I want to thank you all for joining me as you're very patient with me tonight without having Vaughn along. I don't know if she'll join with us next week or not for the regular monthly meeting, but I'm hoping she will, just so we can see her smile and hear her voice. Don't forget, every Wednesday night we will be here live for the South Carolina Cannabis Conversation. We actually talked about it for a few days. Are we taking any time off through the holidays? No, we don't see any Wednesdays that conflict with actual holiday activity. So we should be here every Wednesday through the month. And of course, leading up in January to our Lobby Day. That's all I have for tonight, folks. I'm going to kind of say goodnight. If you do want to reach out, don't forget to reach out through our website, scnormal.org. Go to the contact page. Keep an eye on our social media, especially our YouTube channel, not YouTube, our Facebook page. We tend to post a little bit more there than we do onto Twitter or Instagram. And otherwise, I'm hoping to see you here again next Wednesday night for our monthly meeting. That's it for tonight, folks. Let me check last chance on chat, comments. Nope, we're good. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful night. We will see you next week.